Hello, everyone. Just going to wait and see if some people hop on. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from tonight. This is actually my very first time going live on Facebook and YouTube simultaneously. So this should be interesting, hopefully in a good way. If you're new here, I'm Mari Clark, and I'm a paper crafter, creative maker here on YouTube and Facebook. And tonight I wanted to just pop on and make a couple of cards with you tonight using some really fun watercolors. And so I'm going to show you the products right away here that I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to switch over to my desk. And these are the two cards that I'm going to be making with you tonight. So you can see that there's some black paper here and in the background, and I've got that overlaid over top of some embossing. So it's an embossing folder that I used for the card front. So I'm going to just show you some of the products that I used to create these projects first before we get going, and then we'll get right to the techniques. And I'll show you how I made these cards, and I'm going to remake the cards for you here tonight. So it should be fun. I hope you like it. I hope you pick up some new techniques maybe that you weren't aware of or haven't tried yet. So we're going to be using a little watercolor pan. This is from Iuli. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but I was gifted an Etsy gift card at Christmas time, and I had been eyeing up these watercolor pans from Iuli for a long time. They're a little bit pricey, but I thought, you know, with a gift card, I would go ahead and go for it and buy these on Etsy. So they're really gorgeous. This was their Christmas pan this year. So you can see that there's 6 colors in this pan, and they're just so pretty. This one, I'm not really sure if it's showing up that well on camera, but it's just a really pretty soft pink. And then this one's kind of like a deeper pink, obviously a purple, and then 3 different colors of green, including kind of a teal green. So they're really, really super pretty. And they're metallic. So you can imagine that these, hi Cheryl, nice to see you. Thanks for joining me. You can see that they're a little bit metallic. So these obviously are going to show up beautifully on black paper. So these are the watercolors that I'm going to use tonight. I'm also going to use this Gonzai Tombi Starry Colors palette. I'm only going to be using the gold just for some splatter on this palette, but it's just really, really pretty. I did create a blog post where I linked most of the products that I'm using here tonight. And I will pop that up onto the screen before I leave, but it is just on my blog, Mari Clark Creations. So we're going to be using those watercolors. I'm also going to be using this stamp set from Penny Black. I love this. I did link to it on my blog post, but turns out that it is hard to find right now, even though it's brand new. It's really been selling out. It's called Letter Background, and it's just a really beautiful kind of distressed letter stamp, and it's a red rubber cling stamp. So it's just really, really nice. And so we're going to be using that. And I'm going to be using a couple of dies as well for my project, or I've already used the dies. I pre-die cut all of the die cutting out tonight or before tonight, just so that I didn't have to do that on the live. But this one here on the right is a stitch, just a stitch rectangle frame from My Favorite Things. And this one is a Penny Black die that I've used over and over again. This one is called Antique Frames, and it's just really great for creating a decal edge on your project. So I've already used those dies to cut the paper that we're going to be using tonight. And so you can just see how that frames this paper in nicely. I did already ahead of time do my foiling and die cutting of these pieces here, the sentiments. And that is from this is called Perfect Sentiment Set. And I do have the foil plate and the dies for these. And this is really great because what it does is it die cuts, it foils and then die cuts these all out in one pass. And you get just a ton of sentiments for projects. So those are really great. And you can see all of the different sentiments that are part of that set. So that's called Perfect Sentiments from Pink Fresh Studio. So I made cut out a bunch of those tonight to choose from for my project. I'm also going to be using a stamp set from, this is actually a local company to me. I'm in Saskatchewan and this company is actually in Saskatoon and it's called the Pigment, I should know this, Pigment Art company, and they create the most beautiful stamps and coordinating dies. They have their own inks, they have their own ink pads, just really, really beautiful product. And so we're going to be using this stamp and coordinating die to create our leaves for our project. Now, I did use a couple of embossing folders as well to create my embossed panels. This one is from Paper Rose, and this one is a Sizzix Tim Holtz embossing folder. So I used those to create my embossed panels for the project. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to make this card first. And what we're going to do to get started is I'm going to grab my Misty and we're going to do some stamping. We're going to stamp out those leaves onto this paper. Now this is black watercolor paper. It's Stonehenge Aqua cold press paper. And this is really great watercolor paper. I love it because it's really fantastic with this type of watercolor, right? So shows up really nice on there. So what I'm going to do is put my cold press watercolor paper. I'm just making sure that I'm putting it the textured side up. And I'm just going to put that into my Misty. And then what I'm going to do is take my stamp, my Pigment Craft stamp, and I am going to stamp this out with some watermark ink. And this is a really, really simple and easy way to do watercoloring. So if you feel like you're not up for the challenge of painting your leaves freehand, and you know, like, to be honest, this is a super fast way to watercolor and it's a really easy way for anybody. So if you're just beginning and you want to try a really simple and easy technique with watercolors, this is definitely a really easy technique. So what I'm going to do is I've got my stamp over here in the window or the door of my Misty, whatever you want to call it. I grabbed this just because it was handy. I could also use my honeybee as well. I work for Honeybee Stamps, so might as well use Honeybee's product if I can here tonight. And this is just a beautiful clear watermark or embossing ink. And I apologize if you can hear any peripheral noise. My husband is working on his truck in the garage and it is in very close proximity to my craft space. I share a wall with our garage, so I can definitely hear him. Now I have inked up these leaves and I'm just going to stamp those out onto the watercolor paper. And I don't know if you can see that on camera. I'm going to try to turn this so that you can see it, but that just leaves a nice watermark on the paper. And I'm going to ink it up just one more time. I can see it quite well, but I'll just do it one more time. I'm not too worried about the veins in the leaves. I'm not too worried about being able to see those veins because we're going to just paint right over top of this. Okay, so there we have our stamped images, plural. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to just grab my paintbrush. This is a silver Black Velvet number 6 round. I also have a number 2. These are really nice brushes. What I love about them is they're really nice and tapered so that you can get a really nice fine line on your painting, which is fun. Okay, so what I am going to do is I'm going to look at my sample again and see what I did for those leaves. I'm just going to put this so that I can see it. And okay, what I did was I actually painted with the mid-tone of green here. So I've wet my brush and I'm just going to go in to this mid-tone green. This one is called Grass. If these are in the right order, and I think they are, Wasabi, Grass, and Moss are the three colors at the bottom. And I just really want to work this up into a nice lather so that I have quite a bit of paint on my brush. And now this is literally just kind of like paint by number. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to paint over top of that watermark with my brush. And super, super easy to do, like uber easy. And I can use the tip of this brush for the stem, or I could have used the smaller brush, but you can just see how these silver brushes have just a really nice fine tip on the end so that you can get a broad stroke or just a really nice fine. Hi, Leanne. Thanks so much for joining me. And so, yeah, now we're just I'm going to get a little bit more water. And I'll just add a little bit of water to my pan of paint. And then I will go in and, yeah, just paint away here. So this is super relaxing. And I love doing this for a project. I can come down to my space and just no stress and just, you know, paint away. So it's super fun. And if you go over to the blog post, I did link up to these Aiuli paints. I just went to her Etsy shop and I linked to it, and she's got tons of colors, but they're not inexpensive. They're a little bit pricey. And if you're in Saskatchewan, which I know 2 of the people watching are, oh, hi, Monica. Yay, Mari Live. I know, right? I got really brave. You can paint over watermark ink. Totally true. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So if you're in Saskatchewan or if you're in Saskatoon, you can go to our little paper shop there over on 20th, which I'm forgetting the name of right now. You guys will probably put it in the comments, but they have the stone ground paint, and the stone ground paint is very similar to this Aiuli paint. It's also gorgeous, gorgeous watercolor paint. And they have tons of colors. And I think that Soul Paper, thanks, Monica. I think Soul Paper actually even has a little bit of trouble keeping it in stock because it just sells out super fast. And it's just so beautiful. So all I'm doing there is I'm just starting out on the tip, and then I'm just putting a little bit of pressure on the brush and then lifting to get that finer, just to get that finer stroke. So really super easy. I don't want to overpaint over top of the lines because I'm going to die cut these out, and I want to make sure that the die is going to match up with the images. So ladies in the comments there, I know several of you are from my area, and I'm just wondering if you have purchased any of the pigment products yet from Pigment, the Pigment Craft Company, or whatever it's called, Pigment. I just refer to it as Pigment. But yes, the lady is from Saskatoon, and I know lots of people know her. I'm pretty sure Leanne knows her, and her stamps are just absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, it is the same as Versamark, Monica. So watermark ink, I've used the Honeybee brand, but Versamark is definitely it's a watermark ink for sure. And I do have that right here. I'll just grab it. This guy. This is the Versamark. Yeah. And that's just the same thing. So if you have that, you could totally do this. You can just stamp with any, you know, if you've got any sort of foliage stamp in your stash, which most of us do, then you can just totally try this technique. It's very, very simple. And I did link to this paper in that blog post, but honestly, I think if they would have this at, you know, Art Placement or at Hughes in Saskatoon. I don't know if Michaels carries Stonehenge brand paper. I'm not sure. It doesn't have to be this brand, but just like black watercolor paper. And it's not that expensive, actually. You get quite a few pieces of paper in a pack, and you can cut them into pieces and so on. Okay, Ivana is her name. Okay, yeah. And just really the packaging of her product is so beautiful. The ink pads are really nice. I have a few of them. I don't have all of them, but I wanted to try them, and they're very, very nice. Kind of like sort of subdued colors, I would say, like not subdued. I don't know. Muted is the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So really, really nice product. And so, okay, I'm just waiting for this to dry. I don't want to put the next layer on if it's super, super wet. So I'm just going to use this really fancy tool I have called my hand to fan this a little bit. Are your paints metallic? Yeah, they are definitely metallic. You betcha. See that, Monica? How pretty, right? Yeah, they're gorgeous, gorgeous paints. So now what I want to do is a little bit of layering of the colors. And now what I'm going to do is I can create a little bit of a highlight with this wasabi color. It's gorgeous. It's just so, so pretty. So you'll be able to see if, let's say we wanted to put a highlight on just one side of the leaves. So let's say that we're going to choose this side of the leaves. I probably should have chosen the other side, but that's fine. This is just to show you how you can layer on top of that first coat of paint. And here you can just see I'm just layering this wasabi right over top. And it's just going to add some really nice dimension to those leaves by giving them that second coat of color. So really, really nice. Yes, they have a pearlescent shine. You're absolutely right, Ravina. They're just so beautiful. Yeah. And if you like shiny, if that's your jam, then these are definitely for you because they are just so gorgeous. So pretty. So I'm just going to go over top here, there, and you can see that. I haven't seen black watercolor paper. We'll look for it now. Yeah, it's really nice. It's a nice option. And it really does, it's quite striking when you put it onto when you do a project with it. It's very striking, especially with this pearlescent or metallic type of paint. It's very nice. Very nice to work with. And like I said, super relaxing. And when you don't have to worry about drawing out your pieces, you're just basically coloring over top of your stamped image. It makes it really, really super relaxing. So if you're a beginner watercolorist, you're just starting out and you're learning and you want to try a really super easy technique, this is definitely a really easy technique for sure. So this is the moss color. It's more of a tealy color green. Yeah, shiny is a good thing. I agree. I agree, Cheryl. So this is the brighter green, and I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of it to the other side. It's quite a teal. It's got quite a teal look to it. And again, I mean, these brushes are nice, but they are a little bit more expensive. So you can actually use a type of brush that I really recommend. I'll just grab out of my container here are these Princeton Neptune snap brushes. And you can get these in a variety of sizes. For the ladies who are local to me, you can get these at Hughes for sure. They might have them at Art Placement too, but they're really inexpensive. And they're just a really nice receptive watercolor brush. They work really well. And so that's a really great alternative if you're looking for a paintbrush that's not quite as expensive. But I have to be honest, I've had these silver brushes forever, and they just last really, really well. And they're nice. I like them a lot. So now I'm just going to go on this other side of the leaf and just add a little bit of that darker, brighter green. I don't know if it's really brighter. I don't think that's really the right word, but I got a little bit too much water there. So I'm just going to take the water out of my brush and then just soak up some of that water a little bit. And just do a little bit over here. Not sure where everyone's watching from, but I'm in Saskatchewan in Canada. So I'm in one of the Western provinces. And we are heavy into the melt thaw cycle here. So I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but we are so excited here because we're finally saying farewell to winter, and it has been a super long winter. So none of us, I don't believe, are sad to see it go. Okay, so I do have the coordinating dies for this stamp set. This stamp set, by the way, is called Winter Bloom. And it is from Pigment Craft Company. And you can find Pigment Craft Company online. Hi there from Ontario, C. Susie Q. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. And so I'm going to use these coordinating dies to cut out our leaves. They might still be just a tiny touch bit wet, but you can see here how these coordinating dies are going to just work so nicely for trimming out these leaves. Okay, so I am going to die cut those in a quick little minute, but while I'm waiting for that watercolor to dry, I'm just going to move those out of the way, and I'm going to grab my Misty, my mini Misty this time. And in my mini Misty, I have a panel again of the black watercolor paper. I wouldn't need to use the black watercolor paper for this. I could just use black cardstock because I'm not going to do any watercoloring on this per se, but I was using this kind of paper, so I just went for it. And I used that penny black die that I showed you at the beginning, that antique frame die, to trim out this frame for our card front. It's supposed to snow here for the next 2 days. Oh, dang it. And Ravina's in Ontario. So yeah, it's one of those types of times of year where we don't really know what we're going to get, if it's going to snow or rain or what it's going to do. But as long as it's warm, I'm happy. So this is that really gorgeous script stamp that I showed you at the beginning. And I'm just going to put that into my Misty here. I should show you here how I have this tacked down. I have sticky grid underneath this. So that's a Sizzix product that's like a double-sided low tack tape. And it's great. It comes in lots of different sizes. And I really love it for this kind of technique. It works really, really well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this stamp into my mini Misty. Now I have taken the mouse pad out of the Misty, right? Because this is a rubber stamp, it's thicker. So I took the inside of the Misty out. And now what I'm going to do, no kidding, Monica, no more snow for us, I agree, is use this metallic gold ink. So this is a pigment ink. This one is Encore, that's the brand of it, but you can get this in like 100 different brands, I'm sure. I know scrapbook.com has their own brand of this. Lots of the different stamp pad companies have their own metallic ink. I know that if you got the Vicky Bouton metallic ink wheel, you could use the gold from that, and that's a really nice gold pigment ink. So I'm gonna ink up this script stamp, and I'm going to just go ahead and stamp a background onto this panel for our card, and it's just going to create the most subtle and beautiful text on this panel for the background for our cards. It's really, really nice. This stamp is gorgeous. I love it so much. And I'm just going to give it a good press and lift that up. And that's pretty good. I'm going to give it maybe just a tiny little bit more. But you can see how the sticky grid holds the paper in place, which is really nice. So I'm just going to press on that. And then that is finished. So I'm going to pull that off, the sticky grid. And I actually am going to give that a little bit of a wipe because I do have to use that again. Snow is in the forecast for the weekend. Darn it. Oh, well. Hopefully it'll just melt right away. That's kind of, it's just the way that it goes, right? Because tomorrow it's supposed to be 11 degrees here. And then we're going to get snow again. It's just kind of how it goes. That's the way March is, though. We know that it's going to be up and down. Okay, and I'm just using my Honeybee Stamps microfiber cloth. I love this for cleaning my stamps. It's very well loved, you can see. I'm going to take that off because I'll need that for my other card. I'll just set that aside. And at this point, our watercolor should be dry enough to die cut. So what I'm going to do, and something that I just want to warn you about with this Stonehenge black paper, is it's super delicate when it comes to tape. So when you put the tape on it, when you're die cutting, it's really, really important to make sure that you put the paper on the outside of the die. So don't put it over top of your painted leaf because it will tear. So I'm just going to painstakingly make sure that I have that tape outside of the die. And this is this, I think this is a Spellbinders tape, maybe. I think that's what that is. And you can see that I could have been a little bit more generous with my paint on that leaf. It's a little bit small, but once I get them die cut out, if I want to go and add a little bit more paint, I could totally do that. We'll just put a little bit of tape here. And I'm just trying to decide. I think I'll use my Gemini Junior here. So what I'm going to do is put this down on my very loved and used plate, very scratched up. Leanna's getting put in the island. Yes, we're going to be creating this weekend. Exactly. Are quite a few of you doing the card classes this weekend with Crop and Create? Spring is supposed to be a transition phase. Yes, exactly. So it will definitely be mixed for sure. I agree. 100%. We went out for just a really short little walk this afternoon just around a few blocks here in our neighborhood. And it was just so beautiful out. But I will just show you how this, see how the tape tears the paper? Yeah, it just eats it up. Nice. You can wear your Hawaiian shirt. Excellent. That's perfect. We can all imagine that we're in a hot climate when we're staying in our houses. Okay, so you can just see how easy that is to create these watercolored leaves. And you can see in this sample that I did, I made my leaves quite a bit bigger. So they filled the space. So like I said, I could go back and do that. That's totally an option. I'm not going to, just because I'm on a live video right now. But at some point, if I want to go back and do that, I definitely can. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a card base. So this is an A2 size top folding card base. So what I did to create this was I took an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and I cut it in half at 4 1/4, and then I scored it at 5 1/2 to create an A2 size card base. And this is that embossing folder that I showed you at the beginning that I just embossed, and I embossed a panel, a card panel that I die cut with a stitched frame die from My Favorite Things. So one thing that I would say is if you're going to emboss with an embossing folder, if you want to do a stitched frame around it, die cut out the stitched frame first and then run the embossing folder through your machine. Okay, because if you ran this through the machine to do the edging on it after, it will flatten this out. All the embossing will be flattened. So yeah. Okay, so see, Susie Q says, I'm really looking forward to your cards. Yay, that's awesome. That's fun. I have to do my teacher meet and greet on Facebook tomorrow, so that'll be fun. And we'll be making some fun cards together this weekend at Crop and Create. Okay, so I am sitting down. I should always stand up when I put a panel on my card. I'm just going to add a little bit more adhesive on there, but I'm just going to stand up so that I can make sure that I'm getting this on here straight. You could add this onto the card base with some dimension if you want, but I'm actually going to add this piece on with some foam adhesive instead. So we don't need too much dimension on it. Just kind of depends on what you like. Teresa says, I'm starting to use my embossing folders on more cards. Awesome. Yes, you might as well get those things out and use them, because otherwise they just sit there and, well, they don't get used. So that was definitely when I was thinking about, when I was designing this card and thinking about how I wanted it to look, I was definitely looking at, you know, trying to use some things that I hadn't used in a while either. So sometimes my embossing folders get overlooked just because, you know, it takes one more step, right? It's one more step that you have to add to your project. But I think that they're totally worth it because the texture that they give is just amazing. And yes, it is a huge foam roll. You are right. But that's not even like it's already like quite gone. Look at it when it's full. This is a brand new one, Monica. That's what it looks like when it's brand new. This one is a 1/2 inch. Sorry, this one is 3/4 of an inch. And this one is 1/2 inch. But these rolls last me a super, super long time. And I like to have the big rolls because then they do last for a long time. I hate it when I'm always out and having to replace things. I'd rather just buy a large quantity and not have to worry about running out. Okay, so this is the right orientation. We're going to just go ahead and center that on the card. It is huge. I ordered this one here, the 3/4 inch, which is really nice for card panels. This one I ordered from Honeybee Stamps online. If you're going to place an order to Honeybee anyways, it's worth adding this to your cart because it'll last you forever. And the nice thing about ordering from Honeybee is they have so many different products in their shop. How big is it? Let's just measure it. It's kind of like a one-stop shop. Like they've got distress products and like a ton of things. It's 11 inches. And if you look on the packaging, it says that it is 38 yards of tape, 38 yards of 3/4 inch tape. And it's really nice tape. It works really well. What I do when I'm using that one, if I'm not tearing it, I'll just cut it with you can get scissors that have the coating on them. The Tim Holtz scissors have the coating on them too, so that it doesn't stick. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add our leaves. And I'm going to pop those up on a little bit of foam adhesive as well. This is not something I was thinking about today when I was thinking about the live tonight is this isn't a very springy card. I could have made a card that was a lot more springy than this, but I wanted to use the black cardstock. And so that kind of like, I guess, dictated a little bit more about what type of card it was going to be color-wise. So it's not very springy, but what I really wanted to share with you tonight was that watercolor paper on the black, or the watercolor paint on the black paper. And I've had those watercolor paints in my stash since just around Christmas time. Like I said, I used a gift card that one of my crafty bosses gave me actually at Christmas time. And I haven't had a chance to use it yet. So I thought, okay, I am going to get using that because it's so pretty. So I'm just popping the leaves up on a little bit of foam adhesive. Oh, shoot, Ravina, you just got a honeybee order. Well, yes, put it on your list for next time. And when you have a substantial order to make, put that on your list and go for it, because it is really good. Okay, so now what I did, as I mentioned earlier, I pre-cut and foiled and cut some sentiments from that Pink Fresh Studio Perfect Sentiment set. So I have those all ready to go. And that I love that set for that reason. I can just, you know, batch out a whole bunch of them, and then they're just on my desk so that when I want to make a birthday card or I want to make a thank you card or whatever, the sentiments are all ready. So this is a really nice spot for a sentiment right here. I'm just going to pop some of my foam dots. Just reading the comments here. I always think that embossing folder is spring and the leaves are green. Oh, thanks. Thank you, Leon. Okay, so we are going to just go ahead and put this on here. You know that I had a great day today because I had a visitor. My daughter stopped by with my little grandson, and that was fantastic. I had some baby snuggles. He was actually sleeping when she came, and so you've probably heard me say this, I'm recovering from a broken rib, and so I just sat in the chair and I put a pillow on my lap, and then she put him on the pillow. So I just got to sit and enjoy holding him in the chair. It was perfect. Okay, so I know, right? It was just so nice. Monica, he's just such a sweet little blessing. That little guy, we just love him to bits. He's the best. And I guess if you're a grandparent, you totally know what I'm talking about. But even if you're not, if you've got nieces and nephews and that kind of thing, when they're those precious little babies, it's just so special. Okay, so I love these things. These ones happen to be Trinity stamps, but I know Pink Fresh has these. Honeybee has them in sticker form. You know, they're just gorgeous. These are some Pink Fresh ones. These ones are Metallic Pearls Sparkling Champagne, and they're so pretty. So I'm going to use some of the Trinity ones. These ones are the Luxurious Lilac Baubles, and I thought that would look really, really pretty on this black cardstock. So we're going to put a few of these on. I'm going to use my Murphy Jewel picker and my craft pick here to help me. Oh, I know those baby snuggles, right? Oh, they're just the best. And he was so cute because he was, you know, he was sleeping, but he was making all those faces that they make when they sleep. And Bailey and I just sat there and just laughed. Like, it was just hilarious. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Super, super sweet. He's just a real little sweetheart. We are just loving it. And we're loving just being so close by. You know, she was just out and about running some errands, and, you know, she could just stop over. It's perfect. So we're pretty thrilled. What I do with my Murphy Jewel picker when it starts to get dry and lose its stick is I just spray some pixie spray on it, and it totally rejuvenates it. So there's a little hack for you. Because these things don't stay sticky forever, right? They kind of lose their stick. And that's what I do to fix that. So I'm just adding some little pearls on there. And I just think that looks so pretty. And you could add more if you want. But I think that's nice and balanced. And I'm going to do some splatter on here. So this is the Honeybee Precision Tip Glue Tube. Works really, really well. Okay. So I'm just checking here. Teresa says, looking forward to my first grandbaby this June. Oh, awesome. Congratulations. It's so exciting. Did you get the boho baby paper? Mine is on the way. So I'm super excited. I got a little bit of it, but I ordered some more pieces that the one store that I got some of it from didn't have all of it. And so I ordered some extra pieces from another shop, and I don't have all of it yet. But what are the champagne brand? Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean, Monica. The champagne brand, this one, this stuff, this paint this one is Gonzai Tombi, if that's what you're asking about. If you're not asking about that, just let me know and I can answer your question. Okay, so I'm gonna put the champagne brand of Baubles. Oh, that's what you're talking about. Pink Fresh. So the sparkling champagne are Pink Fresh. So gorgeous. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to take my fan brush. This fan brush is Lavinia, but you could use any small brush, like a fan brush or just a fine brush. And I'm just putting water in my pan here and just lubricating that pigment. And I'm just going to get a nice amount on my fan brush, and then I'm going to splatter. Ravina was just using her jewel picker. It's so good. I love the jewel picker. Okay, I'm just going to splatter some of that gold on with my fan brush. And I don't really care how much, like if it's going on top of my sentiment or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's going to be really subtle. And that's going to be that first card. So it's just really pretty. It's a really, really pretty and soft card. And I really like it. But hopefully you picked up some techniques there. This one's all dry. So you can see when that splatter dries, what that looks like. Really nice. Okay. So I hope that answered your question, Monica. These ones are the Pink Fresh. Pink Fresh has gorgeous embellishments. They're so nice. They're just really, really beautiful. Okay, so we're going to get started on the second card. The second card is just a variation on the same theme. What I did with this one is I just painted these right on the paper instead of die cutting them. Okay, so this is another piece of that cold press black paper. I'm just making sure I'm going to be painting on the right side of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that into my Misty again here. And I know my desk is messy. I apologize. I am not the neatest crafter. I definitely am a messy, messy crafter for sure. And what I'm going to do here is I'm only going to choose one of the stamps. I think the stamps are still in my other Misty. Yes, they are. So I'm just going to choose one of the stamps. I'm going to choose just the larger one this time. And I'm just going to make sure that all that watermark ink is off there just till I get it situated. But I'm going to put this on here so that it looks like it's going off of the paper a little bit and just coming down. And I'm just going to turn it slightly over a little bit. Wiggle it till I'm happy with where it is. Right about there, I think, looks good. So I'll just pick that up with my Misty. And again, I will just take that clear watermark ink. Oh, Monica has a champagne card to do for a wedding. So that's nice. Awesome. Yes, I agree. Crafting is mostly very messy. It is in my world anyways. Okay, Cheryl's been doing the prep for the weekend, and she says she's got a messy space, but I can relate to that. When I was creating the samples for my class, my my desk was a disaster for sure, as it usually is. Okay, so I'm just pressing that stamp onto the black paper again, and it's not hitting there very well. I'm just wondering if this magnet is stopping my stamp from going down all the way. I'm just going to try again. Really press over here on the side. That's pretty good. I can see it. I can see what I have to do. Okay, so we're going to basically go ahead and do pretty much the same thing that we did on that first card. We're going to start off by, let me get my magnet out of the way here. We're going to start off by just getting that wasabi paint. Actually, we're going to use that middle hue here, the grass, and just get lots of water in there so we can just kind of lather that paint up nicely. Get it nice and juicy. I'll just take a little bit off on my paper towel. And now I'm ready to just go in and paint. And we're just going direct to the cardstock, to the watercolor paper. We're not, like I said, we're not going to be die cutting this out. And I'm just going over that watermark again. Hopefully you can see that watermark. And just really simple. And if you want, you can kind of trace the leaf and then fill it in. That's another really super easy way to color the leaf in. Easy, easy, easy. Another thing that you could do, if you have metallic ink pads, like the gold ink pad that I used for the script, you could stamp this same stamp that I used onto just normal black cardstock if you don't want a watercolor, and get a similar type of impression. You'd still get that pearlized metallic look. Would it be okay to heat emboss with clear and then paint? I don't know if the watercolor would stick to the a clear heat embossing powder. You could try it. I don't know if it would stick though. I'm not sure. I did not get this pan of paints from Soul Paper. This one is from Etsy, from a shop called Aiuli, and I linked to that in a coordinating blog post that I posted tonight. You can find this same pan in her shop, and it's a Christmas palette. But the stone ground paints at Soul Paper are very, very similar. So she might have they might have some colors there at stone ground that are similar to this. And I don't know if this is quite dry, but we're just going to go for it. And we're going to layer. It is better if you wait for it to dry, but you can see that it is layering here pretty well. And I'm not using a ton of paint on here, but you can see that if you, that first layer of paint, so the grass is almost kind of a little bit translucent. So you can kind of see the black paper through it when the layer is a little bit lighter. And I like that look. I like to be able to see that black paper there. I think it just makes it kind of look a little bit more interesting in that way. But yeah, If you wanted it to be more translucent, you could just let it dry and add, or I should say, if you want it to be more opaque, you could just let the paint fully dry and put another layer over top of the first layer. And then you'll get kind of more of that solid look. You wouldn't be able to see the black paper. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of that really pretty wasabi. It's so pretty. And you can blend them together if you want, or you can just do like, you could just do like a tiny little highlight on the edge like that. And that would also look really pretty, and then have that mid-tone in the center, however you would like your leaves to look. That's the fun thing about painting, is you can just make it look however you want. And you can do some practicing with it and have some fun with it and see what you can make. But I'm guessing if you try it, you're going to come up with some beautiful results for sure. So that is what that's going to look like. And I thought it would be really pretty, and I did this on my sample, to add some little pretty little pink flowers. Not flowers, berries. Pretty little pink berries. And these ones I'm just going to paint on here. There's no watermark. There's no watermark for the berries. So I'm just going to be brave and paint some little circular blobs. There's quite a bit of paint and water on my brush. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of the excess there. And we'll go in with the green after, and we'll paint in a little stem for the berries. But I really like that pink with the green. I think it looks gorgeous. And it looks really nice with on that black. I think pink and black always looks so pretty as a color combo. Just rinse that. Can you still hear me? Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I'm getting a weird message here on my machine. On my phone, not on my computer, but on my phone. So let me know if you can't hear me. I'm just going to paint a little stem, and I might regret using that big brush for that. I might want to, okay, good. I might want to use the little brush. Meanwhile, my brush flies across. So I'm just going to use my little brush to paint some little stems on the berries. Oh, and that is not what I wanted, but I'm just going to go in because my pink wasn't dry. Whenever you put one color against the next, if they're both wet, they'll bleed into each other. So you just have to be careful, but I think it's okay. So there we have just some really sweet little berries on there, and they don't have to look perfect. Just, you know, a really nice, delicate little impression of a berry on there. I think it's so gorgeous. Okay, so that's it for the painting. This has to dry a little bit. So what we're going to do while that dries is we'll put the rest of the card together. So here is my embossed piece here. So this is the paper rose embossing folder. It's this one. I'm not exactly sure which one this is. I apologize. If you really want to know, just ask the question in the comments, and I'll check, I'll look, and I'll answer you after the live. But it's a paper rose embossing folder. They have some really lovely embossing folders. I don't really think you can ever have too many embossing folders in your stash, personally. I love those things. They're so nice. They just add the most beautiful texture to a project. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my Gina K tape runner here to adhere this onto my A2 size card base. And then this is going to go on top of that. Before we do that though, we're going to grab our mini Misty again here. I'm just going to take this stamp off of there. And I'm going to just make sure that's dry. Looks pretty good. I'm just going to put this back onto the sticky grid. And now I'm going to grab the stamp, that script stamp, and we're just going to stamp right over top of that. Again, with our gold ink. And it's going to stamp over the leaves and everything, obviously. And that's fine. It's going to look nice. This stamp platform here. Oh, you guys are talking to each other. The Precision Stamp Press. Yes. That's the one that Julia uses all the time, right, Monica? I think she used Julia Chupik. I think that's the one that she uses. If you're looking for a good stamp press, that's a really good price. I also really like my Studio Light one. So if you're looking for getting a stamp press, but you don't want to spend the money on a Misty, the Studio Light one is actually pretty good. I can show you that. Also, the Crafter's Companion stamp presses are good. I have the 8x8 size of that, and it works really well too. I'm missing down there, so I don't think I have any ink in that spot. There, I like that. I think that's super pretty. So you can see what that looks like. And now I'm just going to take some of the Gonzai Tombi again, the starry colors in the white gold. And I'm just going to splatter again with my fan brush on there. And I don't love that this one landed right on my berry. So I'm going to try to pick a little bit of it up, but it's okay. Okay, and so now that just needs a little second to dry. Does anybody have any questions for me at this point? Oh, for advice on slimline presses. Okay. Frame cutting die. That is, this decal frame is penny black, and it's called Antique Frames. And I love it. It's old. I've had it for a long time, but I know they still sell it because whenever I use it, I have people ask, and I always try to check ahead of time and make sure that it's still available. And it is. And I think it's just one of those things that Penny Black has that they will probably keep in their lineup for a really long time because it's super great. It's just a really, really basic, fantastic die. So yeah, I love it. Now, what should we make here? Should we make this one a birthday card or should we make it a hello card? What do you guys think? Should we go with hello or should we go with happy birthday? You guys can tell me what you think. We could put gems on this one too. I think these little champagne ones would be really pretty on here. Again, this is Sparkling Champagne by Pink Fresh, and they're a little bit iridescent. I don't know if you can really see that, but they kind of have different colors in them, which is kind of fun. Okay, is this dry or is it still wet? Let's blow on it a little bit. Maybe what I'll do instead of using the foam tape roll, I'll just use foam dots, and then we can go ahead and get this stuck down. while that paint is drying. And I don't know, I'm hoping you guys haven't had, hi there, April Lynn. Thanks for joining. Welcome, welcome. What was I going to say? I forgot. These are also really great. If you've watched me creating here before, you've probably seen these, but this is a whole big, huge roll of foam dots. And that's another thing that you can get on the Honeybee site. But Julia sells those at the Paper and Ink Boutique as well. The script stamp is from Penny Black. And it is called, and I love it, it is so good. It is called Letter Background, and it's brand new out. Like, I just bought it from Simon Says Stamp. But I did notice that it is sold out in a couple of places that I checked a link to on my blog post. So hopefully you can find it. It is a really good one. This is the other one that I bought that I wanted to show you too. And this one is called Music Background. And it's also just a really nice basic background stamp that you could use similar to the same way that I used this one. Hi, Retro RX. You know what? This is my very first YouTube live. I have had a YouTube channel since 2015, and I have never gone live on YouTube before. I've been live on Facebook, not often, but I have gone live there. This is my very first live on YouTube. I was nervous to do it. I'm not going to lie. I was nervous to do a YouTube live. I don't know why. I'm not sure that, like, what's the difference between Facebook and YouTube, but, I don't know. Anyways, I just decided that today was the day. So if you're here, you're here for my inaugural live on YouTube. But yes, I started my YouTube channel in 2015. Isn't that crazy? That's 7 years ago that I've been plugging away at it. There, it's a little bit saggy when you don't have all of the foam tape on the back, but it's not horrible. It's okay. So what did we think? Happy birthday or hello? What do you guys think? Happy birthday or hello? And thank you very much for the encouragement. I really appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. It's okay, I'm seeing some happy birthday. I'm seeing some hello. I'm seeing two of each. Who wants to be the tiebreaker? Hello. Hello. I think there's more hellos. So we're going to go with hello. Baubles with the berries. What do you think? Does that look weird? I can totally take them off. What do you think? Happy birthday does fill the space better. You're right. Anyways, I've got the baubles on there. I don't know if I love them. I think if I were to do it over again, I wouldn't add the baubles. I think they take away from the berries. So I'll show you the card without the baubles so that if you use this design and you recreate this yourself, that's it without the baubles. I think it's better without them. Yeah. Just the berries by themselves looks better than the baubles, but that's okay. That's fine. Super pretty though, huh? It's a really easy technique, super easy technique, and really, really fun to do. I love it. I'm just going to bring up, no, they don't really add. I agree. I don't like them so much either. I didn't like the baubles on that last card. I am going to bring up my blog post here. Oh, no, that's not it. This one. So this is where you can find the blog post for my show tonight. If you go over to marieclarkcreations.com, I listed quite a few of the different products that I used tonight that I thought you might be interested in finding. If there's something that I missed, just leave a comment on either Facebook or YouTube and just remind me, and I'll help you out with that too. Okay. If you don't know where to find me, this is where you can find me. Instagram, I'm at Mari C. Lark. Facebook, well, that's where the live is tonight. Patreon is just Mari Clark. And my blog is Mari Clark Creations. So there you have it, everybody. So that is our 2 cards. There I am. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm just going to go back over to the comments here and see what. Yeah. So when you just look at the card, you think, oh, wow, that looks complicated. That looks hard to make, right? But when you actually see the card broken down into steps and the different, little techniques, easy little hacks and that kind of thing, it's actually not hard to do that type of card at all. So Leanne says more and more. So more lives. Well, I was thinking about that. I need to pick a night. Thank you so much, Retro RX. I appreciate that. It is, I should choose a night or a day, a time to do a regular live. I know I've taken little StreamYard classes before and stuff, and they say, like, if you're going to do live and you want to build an audience, you need to do that at the same time all the time, right? Kind of like watching your favorite show. Grey's Anatomy comes on Thursday nights and Survivor comes on Wednesday nights and This Is Us comes on Tuesday nights. You can probably guess what shows I watch on TV. But yeah, I think it's important to kind of establish a routine and keep up with it. So I'm going to try to do that. So you can watch for that. If you enjoyed tonight and you got something out of it, that's great. And I enjoyed spending the time with you. It was really nice just to meet up with some friends and share some inspiration. So I hope you enjoyed it. I sure did. So thanks so much for joining me. I'm going to end the show at this point. I don't see any more questions. And again, thank you so much for joining me. It was super, super nice of you to pop on. So thanks, everyone. And I'll see you soon. Take care.